Ahab was kind of sarcastic, and he said, well, nothing's happened yet. But anyway, so Elijah says to him, okay, so from this day, on my word, there won't be any rain. Elijah says, surely there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word. So the rain was going to stop, and it wasn't going to come back again until Elijah said so. So there was a drought for 3 years, and it was hard to find water, hard to find food. And in the meantime, Jezebel is doing what she's doing. She's having all the prophets of the one true God killed off. Some are hiding, but she has her mind set on getting Elijah. But God instructs Elijah to go to Sidon, probably because Jezebel is actively looking for him. And because it was so hard to find food and water because of the drought, God instructs Elijah to find this woman in Sidon, and that woman would feed him. So when he gets there, he finds her, he asks her for bread and water, and she says that she only had enough for herself and her child. But Elijah says, don't worry, you'll have enough. Just bring some for me. So even though she felt like she didn't want to do it, she really sort of believed him, and she went ahead and made the bread and brought him the water. So Elijah, here again, it's his desire to help this woman because she's helping him. So her meal and oil don't give out, and it sustains the three of them for a long period of time. And I want to talk about the period, the concept of certainty, because it dovetails into here too, that Barb was talking about the other day, because Elijah himself was certain that God would do what he said he would do, what Elijah said that God would do. And there was no real wavering on his part. And to a lesser degree, the woman didn't waver either. But anyway, so in the third year of the famine, God tells Elijah to go back before the king, because God wanted the king and all the Jews who were there in Samaria to understand, to realize, and recognize the truth of the one true God, and to help them to return to worshiping the one true God. So when Elijah gets there, he asks Obadiah to help him, to tell the king that he's there. Obadiah is another lesser prophet who helped to hide some of the other prophets. But anyway, so Elijah gets his audience with the king again, and he challenges the prophets Jezebel was from Phoenicia, and their god was Baal. So Elisha challenges the prophets of Baal to a test. And the test was that they would gather on Mount Carmel and they would each would sacrifice a bullock. So the prophets of Baal would call on their god, Baal, and the prophets and Elijah would call on the one true God. And the agreement was that if whichever God sends down fire to consume the sacrifice of the bull, that's the one they would worship. But when they gathered on Mount Carmel, Elijah gives this speech, and he basically asks the people, how long are you going to waver between two opinions? And he says, basically, there can be no two truths. And that truth is not decided by a majority. And that really struck home with me because of our efforts in terms of bringing about the age of Aquarius. So truth doesn't need a majority. So Elijah just confirmed that for us. Anyway, so the two bullocks are brought, and the gods who call the god of the prophets of Baal, they rage and scream and yell and asking their god to send down fire, but they call out from morning to like noon and nothing happened. So now here's the thing. Elisha then takes some stones and he builds an altar. He has a trench dug around the altar, and here comes Elijah, the water bearer. He brings water and he pours it in the trench. And then he also pours it over the bull and over the wood. He just drenches everything. Because at this point, Elijah is in Aquarius because he has a certainty, no doubt, no wavering, no nothing in terms of he knows he can trust God and he can trust himself in what he's doing. So after he drenches everything with water and fills the trench, he prays to God, and he declares that God is the one true God. And then almost immediately when his prayer is finished, the fire comes down and it consumes the sacrifice, the stones, the wood, the water, everything. So afterwards, the people, they fall down on their face to prostrating themselves, and they worship the true God. And then they ended up executing the false gods of Baal. And after that, Elijah prayed for rain because he had said there would be no rain until he said there was going to be. So he prayed for rain, and he asked his servant to go look off into the distance to see the cloud. And, he prayed like 7 times. And the servant saw the cloud, and then after that it began to rain. So in terms of Aquarius, he is literally there, the water bearer, because he brings the water to drench the bullock and the altar and everything. And he does it with a certainty that what he was doing was going to be carried out by the Creator. And then again, when he prayed for rain, he did it with a certainty that that because he said it would stop at his word, he did it with a certainty that it would start again at his word. So he was the water bearer, figuratively and literally. Okay, any questions?
Audrey,
Yeah.
did we ever discuss what Elijah meant, the name?
Elijah's name means Yahweh is my God.
Okay.
And again, if you listen at the story, you listen at the allegory, what you get from it, or at least what I get anyway, is that the reason there was that Elijah's name, the reason that Elijah was able to do what he did is because his character was reflective of reality that the only true God was his God. In other words, he trusted and believed in nothing else and was willing to give up his life, if that's what it took, in order for him to hold on to what he believes. Now, this is the certainty that we are talking about when we talk about the age of Aquarius. That is a merging of the material and the spiritual. When we look at what happened, we see more than one instance where the material merged with the spiritual. And each time that took place, it took place because the prophet spoke those words. Now, hear this. Elijah said there's not going to be any rain until I say so. Elijah went to the places where he was led by the Creator. However, it was he who made the decision to speak when he spoke. He spoke these things, and they were, he had spoke them. Why? Because his desire was to show that the only true and living God is real. What does that mean to us today? How does that fit into the environment that we are currently living in? Every single time that we have been expressive of a desire for something to be exposed, the exposure came. This is no different than Elijah saying that that it would not rain until he said so. And even when it did rain, when he sent the servant out to observe to see if a cloud was coming, it wasn't there. I think it's the first two times he went, it was not there. But Elijah did not stop because he was certain, regardless of what the servant saw or didn't see, what he had spoken was to be. And this is the certainty that we have to have in the environment that we are currently in. We have enough history with our Creator for us to embrace this type of certainty. What is that history? Before we understood the principle of certainty, before we understood the principles involved in the age of Aquarius, we were certain that our desires for the exposure of everything that needed to be changed, we were certain that it was going to happen. And it happened as we spoke it. So, why is it then that it's necessary for us to be where we are now in relationship to Elijah's experience? The reason it is because there are going to be events that are going to take place that we are going to have to speak to. And speaking to them with doubt, with certainty rather, means that they may not happen at that moment or that week or that month. But we have to hold on to the belief that it will take place. When Jesus, would you mute your phone, please? When Jesus went to John the Baptist, what happened? John the Baptist said, I must decrease, he must increase. I have a question, rhetorical, of course. Suppose John had not made that declaration about Jesus. Suppose John had not said, there will come one whose shoes I am not worthy to unlatch or untie. Suppose John had not made that declaration. If John had not made that declaration, would Jesus have been able to fulfill his mission? Why I ask that question? Because the lesser always anoints the greater. And John was speaking of a period being ushered in that Israel, that the Hebrews had never experienced before. Not only that, but John said what he did about Jesus in the midst of the period when the Romans were in control of Israel, of Palestine, and he did it during a period when the authorities from Rome had told the priests that they were to control the Hebrews, and when John was declaring an era of a new kingdom, John was in defiance not only to the priests, but also to the Romans. And that is the reason the priests would send people out to spy on John. Please mute your phones. To see what John was up to. So what I am saying to you is this. Everyone in these stories or in these periods, whoever did anything that was going to be beneficial to humanity, to come face to face with those who stood in opposition to them, and they were faced with life threats to their lives. We, at this period of time, are not faced with threats to our lives. However, there are things that we are going to have to walk away from. There are events that we are going to have to speak to. It is my firm belief that the reason we are where we are in terms of understanding the age that we are in is because some horrific things are going to take place in a very short period of time. Horrific things that are going to involve the loss of life in such a manner that it's going to, at any other time than this, anger us to the point where we will ask, where is God in this? And why must we go through this? There are going to be policies that are going to be put forth that we are going to not only question, but they will cause us to shudder. There will be things that will bring tears to our eyes and break our hearts. yet we must stay the course. And keep in mind, when Elijah said there would be no rain, he was also in the midst of the famine. He had nothing to eat. He had no water to drink. He was guided to the widow woman for his sustenance. So he took no thought for tomorrow. He did not concern himself with what he was going to have to survive. He sought the principles of the kingdom. He fulfilled them, and because of that, all his needs were supplied. In other words, everything he needed was added to him. So this is where we are today. And that same energy that Elijah put forth, that same energy that Jesus spoke of in relationship to John the Baptist, that same energy that the disciples spoke of when Jesus asked, "Who do you say that I, the human, am?" Some say Elijah, some say Jeremiah, some say Isaiah. All of these men were faced with death. All these men had to put everything on the line in order for them to fulfill the mission that the Creator had given them. And I am saying to us today, we have to make a decision. And some of us have made that decision. And that is, regardless of where this leads us, without regard to what we have to walk away from, what we have to give up, inclusive of our lives, we are willing to do that for the benefit of humanity. I am not talking about suicide. I'm not talking about drinking Kool-Aid. I am not talking about that. I'm talking about the attacks that are sure to come from religious quarters, from religious leaders who are going to stand and attack every single thing that we do or say. Not that we attempt to do, but that we do, because we don't attempt anything, we do it. The attacks are going to come, especially when the foundations of religion, when the leadership recognizes that the foundations of religion are cracked, and the foundation is given away, and that the foundation that religion is built on is not strong enough to withstand the power that the Creator has endowed within us for the purpose of bringing harmony to mankind, so that as above, so is below can really be a true, not a true saying, but a true experience. Up until now, we have not had that experience. We have tasted as individuals and sometimes collectively. But I'm talking about a continuous living experience with as above, so is below. All of these things are available. All of these things, and the availability of them have been known throughout the ages. And that is the reason that you have the Africans selling to South America long before Columbus crossed the ocean, and imparting spiritual understandings in people worldwide. And that is why it is necessary for us to reclaim our, not just our ancestry, but our inheritance, our spiritual inheritance. It is time for us to give more credence to reclaiming our spiritual inheritance than the credence that we give to inheriting material things. The inheritance of material things become a distraction for us embracing our inheritance of spiritual things. Because of the shoulders that we stand on, and because of the energy that flows from our ancestors, we are able to live in such a time as this and boldly stand in the face of adversity and know that there are no powers that's able to come up against the words that we speak and the desires that we have for the benefit of humanity. Any questions or comments or observations? Hello? Audrey, did you have anything else?
Only that once he did what he did, and Jezebel was really outraged, and she really wanted to get him. He was instructed to go off to Mount Horeb, where an angel provided him food and water, and that's where he went through the earthquake and the fire and the wind, tornado or whatever, and then he heard God in the still small voice, and I think just that even though there is chaos or whatever around us, we can still trust that we hear that still small voice, because we are never separated from the Creator, although maybe it can feel like that when you're in the midst of some kind of testing or whatever weather event or anything that's happening. But because we are not ever separated, we can rely on being able to hear what God is saying to us through the still small voice.
This is Barbara. I thought it was also interesting that Baal, the god that Jezebel served and had her priests serve, he was supposedly a god of rain, thunder, lightning, and the dew. All of the things that Elijah said that would not occur. And so even today we have these big lies, if you will, that people believe in spite of the truth that they sometimes know to some extent, but they choose instead to follow the big lie. The big lie was it was Prophet Baal. It doesn't matter. This is the God of thunder and rain and lightning and dew. They'll meet our needs. And the people found after Elijah did his thing that, for 3 years, Baal was kind of quiet because nothing happened with the drought. So it just reminded me of the big lie that we have today, that we have to be very careful that we don't, that we, as Audrey said, we listen to the still small voice, that we don't listen to the brashness and the overt braggadocio of people or governments or religious doctrine that says we can do this and we can do that. The proof is going to be in the pudding for all of us. And that's why we have to maintain the certainty. Be certain that I am one with the one who created me. And that anything that says anybody or anything that says something that's opposite that's the big lie.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? On the heels of what Barbara said, in reference to the big lie, don't be dismayed, because during the age of Aquarius, despair, we don't give up. We don't fear. We don't have despair. And if you listen at the news, especially when it comes to the elements of voting, you will find, or you will hear, that it's probably not going to happen. Don't feel like it's the end of the world, and don't listen at those pundits, whether they be on TV or in the pulpit, who tells you this, we are going to suffer deal as a result of it. It doesn't matter what they do in terms of the policies. It is what matters is how we respond to them. It is imperative that our response be predicated on our spiritual beliefs. Our spiritual beliefs are the tools or the weapons of our warfare, and nothing else will suffice. We have tried everything else, and it has not changed anything until we begun to understand that what we had been calling prayer and worship and all these other things were created by the same ones who created religion, and not by the one who created everything that is. So, at this juncture, at this period of time, it is critical for us to hold on to what we know the truth to be. And during a period of weakness, of heaviness, meditate, get through it, or call someone, because we are our brother's keeper. And there are times when you or I, or most of us, are going to need to reach out to each other because of what's happening around us. It is difficult sometimes to hold on to what you believe when things around you seems to be falling apart. And it appears as though those things that's falling apart are going to fall on you. Let me give you an example of how critical it is that we transform, that we repurpose this energy that has permeated this consciousness for all of these years. If we look at what's happening and has happened to Haiti, if you have any compassion at all, you cannot help but have a heart that's aching for Haiti. And if you don't have a heart that's aching for Haiti, then something is wrong with you. Why? Because, as has been said to me numerous of times, it doesn't seem like Haiti is ever going to get a break. Well, there is a reason for those things happening in Haiti the way that they are. If you listen at the religious pundits, they will tell you that it's happening because Haiti worshipped an idol god. I'm telling you that that is not the truth. What happened is Haiti was and still is the only nation that was enslaved that has ever fought and won the war to free itself from slavery. And they defeated France in 1804. And when they defeated France, it took them 20 plus years to recognize Haiti as a nation. And in doing so, they made a decision, they meaning the Europeans and America made a decision that Haiti would forever be in poverty. And to make sure that happened, the French said that Haiti owed them, the government owed them somewhere like $20 million for the slaves that were freed. And that payment persisted from 1825 until I think it's 1994, when they were embarrassed by the world France was, and it ended. Now, the other part of that is this. If you cannot believe what's being said, then answer this question. Haiti has some of the most beautiful shorelines on the face of this earth, and definitely in this hemisphere. Yet, there are no resorts there, but they are in the DR, the Dominican Republic. And that is the primary source of income for the Dominican Republic. So why are there none in Haiti? Because that decision is still being enforced. I don't remember the number of times I went to Haiti, but I do know this. If you eat rice, it doesn't matter the brand name. 99% of the time, it comes from Haiti. But none of it is just in Haiti. Why? Because of that decision that was made to make sure they stay in poverty. Why am I telling you this? If you understand the history of something, then it makes it easier to understand the present state. That decision being made meant that Haiti has never had the infrastructure that is necessary for them to withstand storms or earthquakes or anything else, or to rebuild afterwards. That decision was made based upon bondage, slavery, servitude, based upon racism. The energy of racism and the power of racism and how devastating it can be is right there in Haiti. If you want to understand how devastating hatred is and how long-lasting it is, all you have to do is look at what has taken place in Haiti. Right now, that energy is demolishing the will of the people on that island. And that energy of hatred is centered there. Not only was the earthquake there in 2010, one came a few days ago, and now the storm is headed to the same place where the epicenter of the earthquake was. And I am saying to you, we have to repurpose that energy. We have to change that energy for the benefit of humanity. And it is not only that energy we must focus on. The energy that's in Afghanistan, that energy subjugates feminine energy. We must direct our desires in that direction also. Why? Because these men had to take over again so that the back of their power could be broken, so that their will, their desires to subjugate feminine energy could be broken. We have laid before us the plight, the future of this world. This earth is dependent upon righteous people doing the righteous thing without being angry with anyone, without hating anyone, without a blame game, and not playing that card. We did not create race. Caucasians created the concept of race, and we cannot get trapped in that false narrative about race based upon skin color. We are dealing with concepts, and the concept of hatred and the devastation of it can be seen in Haiti. The concept of misogyny can be seen clearly in Afghanistan. It is for the whole world to see. These things that are taking place because they must be exposed. We have exposed America. Now the world is being exposed. The places where these energies are being destructive, we must know about them. We must understand them so that we can do something about them. Again, if you understand the history of a thing, then you can understand the present of that thing. And I am saying the present time and the present conditions that we are experiencing in this country and worldwide do not have to be permanent. They are temporary. Either we are going to be the generation to do this, or there will be a generation raised up to do it. However, we have committed ourselves to it, and you will be hearing from time to time things that are taking place in this earth. Why? Because we must be able to read the signs of the times. And when we speak to these issues in the manner that we are speaking to them, it is no different than Elijah speaking to the rain or telling them that it's not going to rain, even though they believe that their God makes it rain. And just like Baal was the god of Jezebel to make it rain, this nation is the root of the problems in this earth today. And we must...
That's right.
And
That's right.
Would you mute your phone, please? And in speaking to them, we must have certainty that those things will be as we have spoken of them. I'm saying to you that the day will come when Haiti will be one of the most prosperous nations in the Western Hemisphere. Looking at it now, it doesn't appear that way. But simply looking at it with our eyes does not give us a picture of what our eye sees. I believe that the reason that I spent so much time in Haiti was for such a time as this. I taught there. I saw miraculous things take place there. I saw a compound fracture heal instantly. I saw malaria heal instantly. I saw numerous things take place there in Haiti and participated in them. And I am saying the energy that the Creator gave me is the energy that's still there as well. I used to say that I leave all the anointing that I have with you because I did not understand the nature of the energy at that point. But I do now. And that is the reason I am saying that when we see the changes taking place in Haiti, in Afghanistan, in this nation, we will know that peace and harmony is not just in the atmosphere, but it is on the hearts of men. Any questions or comments, observations? Does that make sense to you guys?
Let's add some more to that, since we are breaking down strongholds. All of this violence, wherever it is, there's violence here. but there's violence in other countries too, where the demagogues of government are trying to, and the authoritarian folk are trying to keep the people in shackles and in bondage, not necessarily slavery per se, but in its own type of bondage. There's the voter suppression you already talked about, earthquakes in diverse places, volcanoes, water tables falling so that there's drought, and not only in Africa, but now here. And so everything is on a larger scale. Fires in the United States, not only here, but Turkey, Greece, everywhere. There's COVID everywhere. The polar ice caps that are melting are going to affect water tables everywhere. Starvation in Africa. We have starvation everywhere, not just Africa now. We've got drugs everywhere with ODs, people ODing. And so these are the kinds of things in the material plane that we've got to expend our spiritual weapons against. And they too will be things that will be signs that things are changing when we see changes in all of those things as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? Does this resonate with you guys?
Yes.
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 So, are there any other questions, or do you understand the age of Aquarius and functioning in this fifth dimension? Okay.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I hear what Barbara said, but tie it all together. So the fires and the earthquakes and all the calamities and the starvations, and tie it all together. The influencer recognizes the age of Aquarius, and his action is working from that side of things to do what? To go ahead with it and let me see it from the perspective of certainty.
Oh, from the perspective of certainty. I'll do what I do, and Barbara, you guys, some of you other guys, please help me here. The scripture clearly tells us that nature is mourning, waiting for our redemption. And are you guys familiar with that? I'm sure you are.
Yes.
And the age of Aquarius speaks very clearly about the redemption of men, of the redemption of Adam, the redemption of a group or an individual from being redeemed from religion, being redeemed from the bondage of materialism. And that redemption opens the eye. And when the eye is opened, the eye is shown the energy that exists in the consciousness of this earth and the devastation of this energy in this earth on a broad scale. So the eye sees something the eyes cannot see. The eye sees that the entire world is controlled, manipulated by the same energy. And this energy is destructive, and this energy is, the force of this energy is being put on display all over the world at the same time, and the pandemic freezes us to a point where we have to take the time out and look at it rather than seeing it as a distraction. Also, religion had to be taken off the playing field so people could desire something more. As long as churches were playing games, people were shouting and having a good time. When they closed, now they're looking for more because the things they thought was going to sustain them did not sustain them. And now that their hearts are open in search of something better, something new, crying out as was in Egypt. Those who have been redeemed, who see with the eye, are obligated to understand the signs of the times and to speak about what's not only in the book, but show that the allegories that were left for us to guide us through times such as this, they are there so that we are able to accurately, truthfully, honestly speak into the macro, the things that are being exposed, and our desires for the entire consciousness of this earth to change by repurposing the energy that is so destructive right now. The destruction is an attention grabber. The response to it is a certainty that these things are being shown to us for us to bring them into balance. If the earth, if creation is mourning, then the Creator has to be redeemed to bring it out of mourning. And if we are creators, we are the ones who must be redeemed from our blindness in order to bring it back to balance where it's supposed to be. Does that help you, Ron?
Yes, sir. It does. It does.
Anyone
Thank you.
like to say something about that, please?
It's important for us to stay the course because Aquarius is a time of group consciousness, elevated consciousness, enhanced consciousness, a consciousness that cares about the world and not just one nation, as you just said. And so I believe that we have, in the years leading up to this change, we've been seeding that into the macro. Those are the things that we've been talking about. And so those things that we seeded in the macro cannot help but grow because we are connected and united with and one with the Creator and it with us. And we are saying that this is not for just one person or one people or one nation, but it's for all of mankind. And so that seed, those seeds that have been planted into the macro, regardless of what our eyes see in terms of natural stuff, natural calamities, it doesn't matter. Those seeds are there. And the truth is, spiritual things are greater than physical things. Physical things can come from the spiritual. So the truth is, what's seated in the spiritual is an earth, and I can tell you that here lately I've not just been looking at earth. When I breathe, I not only breathe on the nation here, but I breathe on the whole earth. But here lately, it's like I've been telescoping myself back out and breathing into the entirety of not just the Milky Way, but everything out there. Because all of it is so connected, and one thing depends on another in terms of the spiritual. So I agree, Pastor. We just got to stay the course, and we will.
Thank you. Anyone else? One of the things you said, Barbara, that struck me was group. In the age of Aquarius, there is group consciousness, group awareness. Group awareness. When there is group awareness, group consciousness, we are on the same page. And it is the intertwining of our energy and our desires that brings everything back into balance. And here we are, a group who has no visual of each other, but see each other's heart with our eye. And now we are at the place where we are able to begin to realize the changes that are necessary for everyone to have opportunity to be balanced and to be shown who they really are. Any questions or comments, observations? Let me hear from you. And if you don't agree, that's fine. It's okay. I want to hear that also. Well, I suppose I have the liberty of taking your silence as amen.
Well, I have a quick question, Pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I just want to make a point. When we act from that place of being in the age of Aquarius, or and like Elijah, it's a decision that we make, isn't it?
Yes.
Everything is a choice.
Yes.
We choose to believe, we choose to act on our belief. So sometimes it seems like it's a really hard thing to be in that place. But well, it can be hard, but it can also be very simple because it is a choice, and a choice based on knowing.
And
anyway, I'm done.
Well, the simplicity of it becomes visible to us or apparent to us based upon our experiences. When Ron was talking about forgiveness, I think it was yesterday, and how quickly Kathy forgave and how it took him a minute to do that. Now it's not that difficult anymore. It's simple now. Why? Because of of experiencing it in a different way than he had experienced it before. Am I articulating that properly, Ron?
Very much, yes. Yes. What you also helped with, and throughout the explanation, I have really been feeling overwhelmed lately, and I see the age of Aquarius, and I see this helped. I just kind of get that feeling sometimes, like too much is happening at one time, and just feel overloaded. And the responsibility that you have is not yours alone, nor is it something that you need to, or I need to focus on every detail of what's going on. It's the energy that you focus on, and not the details of what's out there. So yeah, this helped.
Thank you, sir. And for those of you who are hearing what Ron is saying, also don't focus on the details, but also don't focus on the number of people in the earth.
Yeah.
I shared this, that I would leave here, leave home, and on my way to Columbia, I would think, this long ride to Columbia, I'm on 26, and I'm thinking, how in the world can I influence all these people? You must be crazy. Now, I'm looking at all these cars and people in every one of them. You can't even influence these people. So what makes you think the world can be influenced by you? And I had to remind myself of what I know the truth to be. I'm not trying to influence people. I'm influenced. At that time, it was the way people think. But what really I should have been saying, didn't know at the time, was I am influencing the concept and consciousness of humanity, because I am the consciousness of humanity. Don't look at the numbers. Know who you are. You are consciousness itself. So how do you think? What concepts do you have an affinity for? That determines how you respond to things. Any questions about that? No questions, no comments? No observations? Thank you. Thank you for the deep.
When you mentioned that, I saw something. I see this. I saw a chef, and a chef is cooking for many people, and the people are hungry, but they don't know how to cook. So the trust is in the chef, and if there are many people who are operating outside of humanity and don't know that they're human, then he who recognizes that he is human must operate in a way that benefits all of humanity. So it takes the focus off of the many, and the energy is on what is best for humanity. And that's seeing it from the perspective that you see yourself and what your desires are. And that I like that. It helps me to keep the focus, because there's so much going on right now. It's almost like it all just magnified and just exploded in the last several months. And it just helps me anyway to see it from a different perspective.
We are the creator of the chaos as well as the solution. Night, darkness, I create, I made, I formed the darkness, I created the light. We are both. By virtue of our desires, the chaos came into being so that we could see it. It surfaced. And by our desire, the solution is us. So, here we are. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. I do appreciate your time. I do not take it for granted, neither do I take your presence on these phones for granted at any point. There are many things you could be doing, but I'm thankful that you've chosen to hear what the Creator has given us and raise questions about that which you do not understand. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.